Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to the VVA podcast. My name is Leila Resme.
And I'm Cristina Tumino.
And this is episode number 2, entitled The Gate to the Unconscious.
Yes, so we will be talking about the unconscious, and I think it's important maybe first to define what unconscious mean and conscious. What's the difference?
Definitely. So what we like to do is actually look up in the dictionary the definition of things, because sometimes we use words and we don't actually know what they mean. And the dictionary can really shed the light on all the terms in quite a lot of detail. So
yeah, well, in terms of conscious is just that being aware and understanding, like being aware of the surroundings and then
perceiving things with physical senses. So anything we can touch and see and hear and kind of perceive in the moment, that's kind of the conscious, whatever we are aware of.
Yeah, it's the thing that we can, with our mind, we're aware and we can respond to them in some way. While the unconscious is here says is being not awake and aware of and responding to one's environment, and is the part of the mind which is inaccessible to the conscious mind, but which affects behaviors and emotions. So it can be everything that's kind of hidden somewhere.
It's like all this programming that we can have.
Yeah, mentally speaking.
Different memories, maybe from from the past, that our brain has recorded and is affecting us now. So I think this is where kind of a lot of trauma stuff comes from, and actual mental problems, because it's like things that have been recorded by our brain, like probably in a childhood or something, and now is affecting us today.
Yeah, I think as well in terms of, although we're not going to talk about the mental body specifically, but it can be anything that kind of influence us in our way of thinking, like when there's kind of manipulation, indoctrination, there's a bit more subtle, in some way. But as well, in some way, what belongs to this unconscious realm is actually are the emotions and our intuition and all this stuff. So and that's, I think, an important difference that we need to, I think, maybe touch here on, I don't know, is the difference between feelings and emotions. I was doing a little research about this that I actually explain as well in my book, and that feelings have to do with the conscious side, because it's anything that we perceive with our senses. So from everything we touch, we feel, we smell, anything. So anything that we perceive in that moment is a feeling, because we're conscious of that. But then it can become unconscious when it's actually an emotion, and the emotion can be kind of hidden somewhere, and then we're not aware of it. So we can be, for instance, I don't know, very scared of something, like scared of death, for instance, because after we fell down somewhere and we hit badly something, or we might be scared of having, I don't know, a particular disease, and not be aware of this, although other people maybe can see it, but we ourselves can be not aware, and this is part of the emotional side that stays there in the unconscious.
It's so interesting, isn't it, how people from the outside can actually see so much more about us. It's like our feelings and our feelings and emotions can sort of keep us in the dark, hence probably why it's called the unconscious. It all kind of relates, right? So we can be so in the dark about how we act and how we are actually perceived by others, hence why sometimes we act in negative ways, because we aren't actually aware of how negative we're really being. We might think that we're actually there, but there is a positive side to feelings and emotions, obviously, because it adds richness to our lives, and that's where sort of intuition comes from, which we can touch on later on. And it adds to the experience of life in a very profound way. You know, we have like the positive feelings of love and appreciation, and we need those things in order to be healthy.
Yeah, I actually, there are some studies that say, and more or less they all agree on this. They are their main 6 kind of emotions that are recognized in different cultures and studies. And these are, I don't know if I remember them, but it's like fear, I think it was hate. Well, I don't remember, but there are mainly 6. And and I think all of them can be very positive, as you were saying, and negative as well. But we even need like fear, for instance, because fear is what can help us to understand and to be, you know, on the kind of the red light if something
it
really
serves as a
happening.
protection, you know. It's the same thing as pain, you know. If we don't know that, if we're not aware of something being painful, then we don't know that there's something wrong with it. And it's the same with fear. If we were never to feel fear, we would probably do a lot of very stupid things and die as a result. So we
Well,
do
like
need
children when they're quite fearful and they just don't understand, they're not aware of the dangers and they just go. But sometimes they can feel like, oh, okay, maybe I need to stop now, because that is the emotion in that sense will help us to protect.
So there is a purpose to it, a very important purpose. But it's important to have things in balance so we don't go overboard and, you know, have this constant anxiety and, you know, this emotional trauma constantly going on, and actually controlling us instead of us using that in order to help us in life.
I was reading about how some new kind of medicine, in terms of with a more kind of holistic approach, or anyway a bit different to mainstream medicine, that they start to consider in some way how our body can heal itself without like medicines and stuff, although we need them, depend on what is really going on, and maybe we need them, but most of the time we can actually do everything. Our body can do everything itself. We just need to be patient and be able to listen to the body. But in many things I've been reading, there's starting to be the idea of how emotions can highly, highly influenced our physical body, that they can make us ill in many ways. So from even, there are some medicines like this that I've been reading of, the new German medicine, but not only that one, there are others as well, that they even say that we can create ourselves cancer in our like tumors and stuff because of an emotion that is working in some way hidden in the background that we're not aware of, and they can in some way create and stimulate our body to react to it.
Well, it is energy, isn't it? So I mean, it kind of even makes sense from the point of when we're like feeling depressed, we rarely have a lot of energy. But when we're happy, we want to do a lot of things. We want to express ourselves. And that's just something that can be recognized instantly. So, you know, it just goes to show that things that, for example, unresolved emotions and issues can have a profound impact on our physical health, because it's like this accumulated negativity, and our body has to resolve that somehow. And if we don't do it consciously, it will do it unconsciously and produce a disease as a result.
Although I was reading that, again, something to bear in mind. I'm not saying that it can be 100% true, or maybe it can be true for some aspects. There's not for all the aspects, but the body is actually on our side when it kind of creates a disease, is because it's trying to react, it's trying to tell us something or trying to do something in order to solve the conflict in some way, but because it's like he has an independent kind of mind that works within, I don't know, I don't know, it's just
conscious, isn't it? That's what the unconscious is, things that go on within ourselves, you know, beyond the threshold of our awareness. So the body is such a profound machine in a way, and it has so many incredible functions that we don't even know about. I mean, you know, science hasn't even fully understood the magnificence of the human body, and there is so much to learn because it all happens unconsciously.
And I think the more we are used to easy ways to solve things, and just as I was saying, medicine and science. I'm not saying that medicine is not important or science is not important, not at all, because thanks to this we have achieved all the things we have so far. But I think we are getting very far from understanding like who we are and how we work, and listening, observing, being patient. And that, like, we just need to be patient. I know of like one of my family members, I mean an auntie, that she had sciatic, like an inflammation. And I was just saying, why don't you exercise? It's so important that you do movement and exercise. And she was like, no, I just take a medicine and it would go away. And it was apparently so badly inflamed that even with medicine couldn't go away. So she had to start to do some therapy, and therapy included movement. And I'm saying sometimes, I actually, more than sometimes, I think very often that the best solution, the good one, the good solution is the one where you need to be patient and you need to work on it, and it takes time, and you need to, and I think it's the same with the emotional side. It's becoming aware, is bringing like the awareness thing, the hidden emotion to the light, so we can see it and we can work on it.
And I think this is why it's so important to manage our emotions, because when we do, we can kind of, in a way, silence them and actually be able to listen to what our body is trying to tell us. And I think that will go into like intuition, which we can talk about later on. But I think it's important to touch on how, you know, emotions can impact us negatively and sort of distort our reality and cause these sort of perceptions of reality that aren't actually real. So for example, there is a difference between an event and our perception of the event. So for example, if somebody hurts us, we might be hurt not because of what they actually did, but what we think that they did, or the reasons that we think they did it. And that might not even be the case at all. They might not even be thinking about that particular thing. So it's not to invalidate someone else's feelings and emotions, but to make a clear distinction between the experience and the actual reality of what is going on, the event and the experience of that event.
And I think it takes lots of work, because you can feel hurt, but maybe you can feel hurt, I don't know, there can be many reasons, but maybe because that person actually did something bad to you, okay? But it could be because you are not maybe used to criticism, I'm just saying. And that person is trying to is noted, it's like showing you maybe something that in some way is real, like an attitude that brings certain consequences, and the person is just saying that, for instance, and you don't like to hear that because it hurts you. But in reality, you need to go deeper on that emotion and understand why it's hurting you. Is it because you actually are doing something that you shouldn't be, that behavior is really not acceptable? Why are you having that behavior? Is it because maybe you're frustrated from something else, and instead of working on that something else that is frustrating you, can be, I don't know, work, it can be because you're not happy with yourself or anything, then you react in that way as a consequence. And in reality, you are doing bad. It's not the other person that is.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and we don't like to see ourselves as the villain in the story. We like to be the hero in the story. So
Exactly.
I think is important to that's why it's important to dig as well, and be honest.
I think it's very easy to look at others and perceive their negatives, but we always want to think of ourselves as, you know, like the hero, like you said, the positive person. But actually what we should be focusing on is the things that might be wrong with us. You know, it sounds really horrible because at the moment there's all this thing where, you know, we want to just repeat affirmations that we're amazing people and kind of ignore the negative, but actually that is very toxic, because the more we ignore something and leave it in the dark, the more it grows, you know, and then it becomes a kind of this monster that we have to deal with later on. And this is why we might not realize when, you know, we are actually being the negative person in our life, and in our head it's the whole world that is negative.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that this is what we perceive, because this is the lens through which we view the world is stained, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why we see this darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And really all we need to do is just to, you know, wipe the lens and clean it and then we'll see the whole world completely different. So yeah, we have to be really careful of, you know, what kind of things we hold within ourselves unconsciously, because they might be just, you know, coloring our world in a very negative way.
Yeah, and I don't know, I have the feeling, I don't know you if you have the same feeling, but that's lately is a lot about emotions in anything. Like, people act according to an emotion, people do things according to an emotion. Like, everything now is a bit more about emotions. And I don't really think it's a good idea to focus and do everything on emotions, because they are just a way to experience life, but it's not the way to move forward.
Yeah.
Because that's why when we do like you know, in emotional intelligence, that we say is important to be aware, like recognize the emotion, and then being able to control it. Control it doesn't mean that you can be happy but only a certain point, or you need to be careful of how much happiness you have. No, that's not in that sense, but being aware of an emotion in place. So in case if you are fearful of something, you need to become aware, so then you recognize it, and then you can use your mind to balance it, or to control it, or to understand, okay, I'm very scared of doing this new project, as we were talking in the previous episode, but why? What are the things that make me scared? Is it because of this? And trying to find facts, or trying to find something rational that
Exactly.
allows you to face that fear and move on. And I think I actually was writing about this in the book as well, about expectations. Because I think, and I'm experiencing this myself, I can see on myself and on other people and other things as well that I've been researching, that I think expectations can be very dangerous in reality, especially when we have expectations on others. So when we are expecting, and this can happen as well in family or friends, especially with people close to us, when we expect people, and sometimes this happens again unconsciously, we expect somebody to do something for us, like family member, because he's, I don't know, the mom or the sister or the brother or whoever, we expect certain things to happen. And the problem is, we cannot have control on other people, we can have control only on ourselves. So if we expect that person to do something and it doesn't happen, even if our intentions are the best intentions in the world and we love them and everything, then it creates so many kind of, it's like steer something in the emotional kind of side, and then we start to be resentful, or we start to be
exactly, because we live in this kind of like illusion of expectations and how we imagine the world should be, instead of actually looking at it for what it really is. So I think it's really interesting how before it used to be, you know, I think, therefore I am, and now it's kind of gone to I feel, therefore I am, which is like, you know, we can't lose our rational side because the mind is so important. So that with thinking, we have to be able to use sound judgment and discriminate between the two things, and then see the, you know, illusion and reality and which one is which. But when it comes to feelings, the feelings can kind of make us believe and create this reality for us, but actually it's not real. You know, we live in this illusion created by our feelings and emotions. And this is really important to remember, that, you know, feelings aren't necessarily facts. It's not to say that the feelings aren't real, because they are, and they are clearly very powerful, because, you know, they can affect our whole experience of life. But they are not the full thing. You know, they're just one side of the general whole, and we need to be aware of that.
It's perception. I was, you know, Plato and Socrates, they actually, these ancient Greeks, they make a clear difference between emotions, that again is what we perceive with our senses, but how this is not what we really should rely on, because again, it's perception, it can distort reality. It's just how we experience things, not necessarily how they are. But instead of relying on this emotional side, is more important to kind of rely on more like on the soul, and how in that way that lead us to take certain things and make certain choices. Because it's the same like when you are, it makes me think of somebody that comes, like you go to a child or even an adult, and you have, well, maybe let's think of a child. So you have an apple and a piece and a chocolate, okay? And you go to the child and you say, oh, what would you like? Of course, the child will go with the thing that makes his experience in that moment better. So the chocolate will make him feel happy, it's nice, the taste and all this stuff, and it will gratify that moment straight away. So that is, the choice is made more from this side of the emotional side. And again, emotions are more like impulses that we have. It's an immediate thing, it's an impulse to something. While the apple would be maybe what, if we think about it and we follow maybe our soul and what is telling us to do, we can realize that the apple maybe is the best choice. Of course, I'm not saying we cannot have chocolate ever, but what I'm saying is that if you are in front of a choice that can be important.
It's like the short-term pleasure and the long-term fulfillment. And we have to.
So what often can be that the emotional side can lead us to the wrong choice, to the easy choice, or to something that's not actually real in some way, because we perceive it in that way. And then it can completely ruin everything, because we're going to, like, if we start to make mistakes one after the other because of the emotional side, we can.
I feel like the emotional side is almost like the animal part of us, and then you know, we have to kind of act out from within our soul so that we can control the animal side, and then, you know, act as an actual human, you know, from our spirit and our soul. And that's what actually leads us to making the right choices, instead of, like you say, the kind of short-term pleasure thing, and actually lead us towards the long-term fulfillment.
Although sometimes I don't think it's just about pleasure, like, oh, often can be because of the immediate pleasure. But I think as well it's just because, again, we're just following, as you were saying, that kind of wild impulse.
I think it's a release of tension
Mm.
in one way or another, because when our emotions can make us very tense, and I think this is what they drive us towards the kind of easiest way to release our tension. So whether it's through, you know, drinking or smoking or eating unhealthy things, you know, they provide that instant release of tension, but then in the long term they create more tension to be built up. Whereas with the long-term situation, it's more about actually learning how to deal with tension and how to be comfortable with it, so that it doesn't stop us along the way.
I think it can be as well, now that you're mentioning this, it could be as well, not just about releasing, but sometimes can be about having more. So like if you are angry, okay, if you're very angry, in that moment it's like fire. So what you want is more fire, because you need to, the emotion, and that's why it's so bad when the emotion takes the lead, because that's what happens at some point. If we don't control it, the emotion is controlling. So if we're fearful, it's the emotion that is leading us and making the choices for us in some way. Like we're very influenced by what the emotion is kind of, leading in that moment. And the same when you are very angry. If you're very angry or you hate somebody or something or whatever is, and it's very strong, you don't want to release it, you want more. It's like you need to feed it. You need to put more fuel into this fire thing. And of course that's not something.
Yeah, exactly. I think you know, that also relates to the fact how, you know, feelings of hate can kind of lead us into thinking that someone is bad no matter what they do. So it's like, again, it's like that lens that we view the world through. And it's the same on the flip side, where feelings of love can cause us to, you know, not see someone else's faults. So there's always this you know, this duality, this balance that we have to be aware of, so that we don't scrutinize someone for no reason just because we have already decided that they are a bad person. But also on the other side, if we have intense feelings of love, to not idealize that person and to realize that they, you know, can actually be negative.
Yeah, it makes me think of you know, when you read in the newspapers of I don't know, somebody that murdered somebody, like, and I don't know, a man did something very bad and killed many people, and how the love of a mom, for instance, often when you hear and watch these interviews and stuff, often the mom or the neighbors would be thinking, oh no, but he was a good guy. I don't know what happened with him.
Yeah,
Or
it's
the
like that
mom
person would never do that, but actually, you know,
yeah. So
they
you're
did.
not seeing the reality, because you are
Yeah.
thinking of, oh no, but he's good. I know he's good deep inside. Something happened. It was because, I don't know, whatever. They try to find any possible excuse. But it's not just they, us, anybody. We can, if we are led by the emotion, we can become blind. We don't see. We don't see what's going on. And we think it's other people, as you were saying, if it's about love, and you think, what's wrong? It's love, it's beautiful. What are you talking about? Yeah, but sometimes being there, like just loving and not ignoring the negative. When you ignore, you think it doesn't exist, even doesn't exist, but doesn't exist. You are not considering the reality as it is.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, because you know that there's the saying that, you know, the love is blind. But then people also say when they're really angry, they say, I blacked out, you know, so that it's like these intense feelings of emotion, they literally cause us to not see. the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually goes into, you know, the symbolism of the kind of yin and yang. So we've got the yin, which is the feminine, the unconscious, the chaos and the darkness, right? The moon, which is the night. So it's all, you know, some people might think, oh, that's very, you know, negative, but it's just the way it is. We need the darkness in order to have light. They have to coexist
and
together.
vice versa. You need both.
Exactly. So yeah, it's really interesting how like we actually unconsciously speak these things, you know, when we're like blind in love or like in this blind rage. So subconsciously we all understand this symbolism, we actually act it out. So yeah, I think it's also important that, you know, like when we're talking about like the feminine and the masculine, we're talking about forces. So we're not necessarily talking that like all women are like darkness and chaos and
but the aspect, the energy, the feminine energy that is all this part of like the hidden, the emotional side, in feminine as well is about creation and the aspect of creation, not necessarily of like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that those forces, when they're like, you know, manifested within the body, we obviously as women have more of the feminine force on general, but obviously we need the masculine force as well in order to live. Yeah. But
yeah, and of course there are men that can be a bit more, they can have a bit more of the feminine side.
Yeah, so it's all forces
on the masculine.
Yeah, but we can see actually how, you know, in biology these forces manifest. So for example, women are much more able to multitask, you know, we're a lot more emotional. We actually respond to fear a lot stronger than men. So there's all these biological differences because of the concentration of the force within us. So yeah, I think it's also important to maybe touch on the kind of toxic side of femininity, since, you know, we're talking about like the feminine force, because I feel like there is just so much of this going on, and again, it's symbolically, it's associated with, you know, the unconscious and the darkness, and all of that seems to be pretty much unconscious for a lot of people. So for example, misandry, which is like, not many people even know that name.
I don't know.
Which is basically the male equivalent of misogyny. So it's that hatred for men, and it's so present within our society at the moment. There is so much man hate going on, yet nobody even knows the term for it. Everyone always talks about misogyny, and only that side is in the light in our society. And I think it's
if people are not even aware of the term, and
I mean, it just goes to show. It just goes to show. There is, you know, I've experienced like many women just talk so badly of all men. And it's like, if someone was to say the same thing about women, it would be like, oh my God, you know, like, it's just so unfair. But yet we allow these things to, you know, be said about men. And I think it's really important to, you know, question that and realize that it's just as bad as misogyny. So these kinds of unconscious ways that we do, I mean, that we live in, and this kind of emotional reaction towards things, you know, they can really take us from one side to the other very quickly. So just because we want good things for women and we want fairness and we want protection doesn't mean we have to go onto the other side of the spectrum and hate all men, because that's just as bad and it's just as unproductive and destructive, which actually destruction is also on the feminine side of the force, you know. So it's very interesting, but it happens unconsciously, which could be argued that it's more dangerous that way.
Yeah, although I think, yeah, because it's part of the emotional side. Although I think that if we're going again to the symbolism of yin and yang, and the masculine, is masculine can be as well a very how do you say, in terms of destroying things, not distraction.
Yeah, it's more forceful,
Yes.
and also it's more rigid in
Yeah,
its ways.
yeah.
So
It's
that's
more
the kind
about,
of difference. All forces can be positive and negative.
yeah. That's why it's the same symbol. You have like black and a white dot,
Exactly,
and vice versa.
exactly. So
But I
yeah, I
think
think
as well
it's
this thing you were talking about, emotional and in terms of, how do you call it,
misandry.
misandry, yeah, is in some way it is just, the principle is the same in terms of, is the emotion that is leading, and it can be against not just men or women, it can be against people specific. It doesn't matter, like, it doesn't matter the gender. It's like you have this strong emotion against somebody. It can be a politician, it can be anyone, but you have this strong emotion. And I believe when you have this strong emotion, you you really, really need to stop. That should be like an alarm bell or something, where you need to stop and then see why he's so strong. Because there must be something. I know somebody did, if somebody killed, of course, or did something very bad, you would be very, I don't know, angry or disappointed or feel like it's unfair, but, and rightly so. But I think what is important is going beyond and trying to understand. It's the same when somebody passed away, and the emotion in that moment is of course is very strong, and you're grieving, and somebody, I mean, it's not there anymore. But again, is understanding the emotion, becoming aware of, you need to go through it, but understanding it, not avoiding it. You know, there's people as well that think, I'll just go and meditate. You're really just putting it on the side. Again, you're putting it under the carpet, and it becomes a monster, as you were saying before. But it's going through it, be aware, going through it, and trying to dig and use your mind and understand, and going beyond, and learn whatever is the lesson for you to learn. Take that. Of course, it's not an easy thing to do. I think it's something, I mean, I work on it every day, but
Yeah,
it's,
I think a great way to deal with that is to ask the question why. I think that's one of the most powerful questions. It's like you feel a certain thing, and then you ask yourself, why am I feeling this? And then you have your answer, and then you ask why again. Well, why is this? And then why is that? And then, so that why is kind of like, you know, a little door to like go deeper and deeper and deeper into your unconscious, so that you can uncover the real truth, what's really at the bottom of, you know, this emotion that you're feeling. And when you get to the bottom, you can basically resolve it, because when there is no more why, it's like you've completed the game in a way, right? It's like you've completed the level. So yeah, the question why is so powerful. When it comes
I
to
actually, it makes me think that I don't know, a few years ago I went to this like workshop in London, and we did this exercise, and so powerful, and it actually is what you're just saying, and it's very powerful, that you ask the question, like in this case you're saying why, but it can be any question where you want to know the answer. So you can be asking like, what is your soul really braining for, like the wants now, the needs now, what is desperate to know now, to do now, for instance. Or it can be anything, but you ask that question, as you were saying, you say why, and then you answer. And it's nice when you do it actually either in front of another person that maybe you don't even know the person, like because you are more open to say what you really think, because that person doesn't know you and maybe will not judge you in some way, and you think I'm just more open to that, or maybe writing it. But of course, you need to be honest with yourself. But it's so interesting when you have the person in front of you and he's looking into your eyes. That's what I'm saying. Looking into your eyes and then asking the question, for instance, why? No, you say, why did you not go for the job? I don't know. Why did you not go for the job? And you just say, oh, because of blah, 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 blah. And then the person says, okay, thank you. But why? And ask you again the same question. And for like 3-4 minutes, you put the watch and then carry on asking, but why? But why? But why? You really, at the end, you have to go deep. You have no other, even if you start to talk about something, it's not you're going to develop whatever is that narrative or whatever is that thing you're talking about, because you will go back again to the same question, why? And it gets so deep.
Yeah.
So you're like, wow,
this
is...
It's so surprising how much we actually know already within ourselves. But we just have to ask, because unless we do, it's like we will just constantly act in that conscious realm, which is just this. It's like when you think about the earth, right? You've got the core of the earth, and then you've got like a tiny bit of crust, and we're basically operating on this very shallow edge. But there is so much below that we can actually access.
1%.
I mean, the human mind is so fascinating, and we just don't know how to use it yet, and one of the most important things is to know yourself, and we can, we don't necessarily need a book for that. We can just ask ourselves questions, and for some people it might be easy to just write it out, just ask the question and just think. And I think we're just so distracted with our emotions and the kind of pursuit of this instant release of this tension or whatever, or this this pleasure to distract ourselves, that we never take the time to actually ask ourselves important questions. So
I believe anyway that the mind, of course, is different to the soul. So it's more about, because the mind works in the same way as the emotions in some way. Of course, we're not talking about the mind at the moment, but they work more or less in the same thing. They are still part of the physical body and in some way, and experiences in the world, and that's quite limited. That has limitations. But the soul, that is completely another thing. The soul is what we need to connect to, because that is what we is our kind of guidance, because it knows more. And I think here is actually where we can explain how intuition works and why intuition is quite different to emotions.
Because it's completely different. And I've seen, a lot of people, by working with tarot and things like that, people develop this kind of confirmation bias when they think they read the cards, for example, or any kind of thing like that. And they think they're having intuition when really they are just feeling things they want to feel. So they see what they want to see, basically. So it turns out that the reading they get is like causing more bad for them than good. So it's really important to make a distinction between intuition and feelings, because you can imagine we have a body, and then there's another realm, which is the feelings, and then we've got the mind, and then beyond the mind is where the soul resides in a way. So intuition is our connection to the soul, to the guidance of the soul, and the soul is our connection to God. So it's through that we can actually find out, what our purpose in life is. That's what the real purpose of intuition is to know the will of God, and to know which way we should be going in life.
I do believe 100%. I agree with you. I believe we all have a purpose, a unique purpose, because we are all unique and we have one unique purpose. And the more we can connect with our soul and understand that intuition or that kind of connection and what is whispering, because it kind of whisper to you. It's not, I think you need to train yourself to make it, to understand better these whispers and make it a bit stronger and understand. And the more you can do this, the more you can really listen and understand and make the right choices. But I think we have a purpose and we need to fulfill it. And when we really fulfill it, we learn lessons, important lessons, and we have that kind of deep feeling of happiness and contentment. But the real feeling of contentment, not just an ephemeral kind of happiness moment where you, I don't know, whatever you put, you receive a like on Instagram or something, like a proper kind of
real fulfillment, you know, that feeling of the connection to our soul and God. And I think it's important to maybe explain how we can actually do that. And the way we do that is by controlling our emotions and feelings so that we can become receptive to the voice of the intuition. And again, receptivity is also the kind of feminine aspect.
The sensitivity,
when it comes to the force, yeah, it's like the sensitivity, receptiveness. This is what allows us to get in touch with our intuition. And the reason why we want to have this guidance is so that we can, you know, become kind of receptive. And I know people don't really like to use the word servitude because they're associated with, like, you know, weakness, but it's actually one of the most powerful things to be able to serve God and do what we are supposed to do in this life. And this is what the intuition is for, so that we can hear that voice of guidance, so that we know what to do and how to serve God. And
yeah, and I agree. Serve in terms of, you're not serving someone because you are kind of losing your power on that thing. It's more that you are actually, because you had your purpose to come in this life to do something, by serving God and that purpose, it's like you are actually loyal to your intentions and what you needed to do when you came to your life. It's like I read in one of your articles that I really liked it, that you said it's like we sign an agreement first, like our soul signed this agreement before coming. So by serving God is actually, we are being on the side of ourselves, because we are, part of us is God anyway. So we are making sure that we are respecting what we signed for. We are actually doing this. We are becoming loyal to ourselves.
Exactly.
And in that sense, we are serving ourselves. Well, I think when we serve God, we are serving ourselves and God. It becomes all one kind of beautiful thing.
Well, I actually think in terms of, you know, power, because there's so many people want to be powerful in the world, but I think it's like the servants of God are the most powerful, and they're more powerful than any person that has power over, you know, thousands of people. The one person who is in servitude to God is the most powerful out of all leaders of the world who don't have that connection, you know. And this is one of the most special things to aspire to, but it does take work, because we have to learn how to you know, discern between reality and illusion, and what our feelings are telling us is real and what is actually real, because there is a difference between them.
Yeah, and as you were saying about power, I like that power is about increasing that kind of strength, like that inner strength, that power within, and growing that power within on yourself, and being able of controlling your emotions, your mind, your body, because even when you are, everything is connected in some way. So if you know you're eating something you shouldn't, it means that you are not in control. You don't have that power. And when you are in control, that power is like another level. That's what gives you that determination to achieve anything. And that, as you were saying, is quite different to the power in terms of on other people. Power on moving things and moving people and controlling people. I think that doesn't go anywhere. I don't think.
I mean, I think there is there has to be a balance, isn't there? There's always like this duality that comes into place, and I think it's like a force. Power is force, basically, right? So if we have a masculine force and then we have the feminine force, that means we have masculine power and feminine power, and they have to be used in balance within our lives. So there are times when we will need to put more kind of force into action, how we spoke in the last episode, but now we are kind of addressing the power of, you know, softness and receptivity and sensitivity and servitude, because it is incredibly powerful, and it's what connects us to God, like we said, but it still has to be used in conjunction with the more kind of masculine force, because we don't want to become too passive and then not to get anything done, for example. You know, so I think it's just important to realize that the power is force, and it can be manifested in many different ways, but yeah, I think
but what I mean is that power is a force, and it can be used positively or negatively. So that's the thing. I was thinking of before is in terms of focusing on the power within, because when you focus on the power within, then you know how to do that. Then you know, in some ways, like you know how to use this force in a positive way externally around you. Not just because if you know how to use it internally, and then you become fair in some way. I don't know if fair is the right word, but you understand how to use it in a positive way within you, then you will do exactly the same externally when you interact with anything.
Totally. No, I completely agree. I think it's that kind of idea of you know, the purification of the body and soul, and in a way gaining balance in the different with the different of the different forces within ourselves, so that they don't control us, but we can control them. So it always comes down to the whole thing of knowing yourself, and knowing yourself is being able to realize when you're reacting on different things, whether it's emotions or, you know, different thoughts and anxiety or different people, and realizing that the power is always in controlling yourself, how you respond to the world, because then the world will end up responding to you as a result. And I think there's a difference between wanting to manipulate the world and influence the world with the world.
And because I think we have both. We are bad and good. We can really be bad and good. We have both things inside, like being a yang and all these things, and feminine and masculine. So we have this force. So that's why we're saying the force, the power is there. It depends what is prevailing within you. Is prevailing and taking control the negative side within you, then you are using the power not in a good way, for sure. Exactly. If it is the positive side, then you are using it most probably you're using the positive way, because you know how to control, first of all, the negative within, because it's not that you don't have it or you just know how to do it, and then perfect. You don't have to think about the negative side. No, we have it all the time, and we just need to be aware of it. Try to take it to the light, and then work on it and keep it under control. We cannot think like, oh, it doesn't exist. Now perfect. We're all good and divine. No.
Yeah. I think this is actually really important in today's age, because there's so much going on in the world, and there are so many people living in this kind of despair about where the world is at. And they are often, you know, just pointing fingers at everyone around them and at the world and at these different things that are going on, without realizing that the most important thing they can do is to, you know, a really cliche thing, look within themselves. And when they change that, their experience of the world will change, because so much of what we are taught isn't necessarily real. You know, we are constantly flooded with negative news and all these things, and this is because these things affect us. And when we're in that kind of fearful state, we are so easily manipulated. And this is why we react in such negative ways. And I think it's so important to realize that the world is the way it is because of how we are as people on an individual level, and we can actually take control of that. And the world is not going to get better until we all look at the situation individually and look within ourselves and change ourselves for the better, instead of expecting the world to change for us, because that never works.
Yeah. And first of all, we need to see what our faults are. What is it that we're doing wrong ourselves? And be honest, because I think 98% maybe of the time, things, they don't just happen for a reason, or they don't just happen because of somebody else's fault, but it's because of choices that maybe we started years ago, and then we got to a point where if things don't work anymore and they're very bad and we cannot do anything. And it's not just because of what happened in that moment, it's because of all the choices we made, all the things that we made. I think more than often is our own fault.
Oh, totally. I mean, if it's something from the outside, it's because it's a lesson that we need to learn. And I think that, you know, emotions and feelings, they are very magnetic. So they pull us, you know, it's like we kind of get stuck in that feeling of negativity and this kind of wallowing in despair and you know, thinking of ourselves as victims, because in a way, like, you know, it pulls us to that, you know, it's very magnetic. And in a weird way, a lot of people actually enjoy being victims, because it takes away from the responsibility that they have to take over themselves. And the truth is that no matter what happens to us, regardless of how traumatizing something can be, okay, it probably shouldn't have happened, but it's our responsibility to heal ourselves from whatever had happened. No one can heal us for us, you know, it's always us. So if something awful, whether it was when we were children or maybe adults or whatever it is, regardless of how unfair and unjust it seems, it's always our responsibility to get ourselves together and heal from what has happened. Because if we don't, you know, it's like someone might have hurt us for, like, you know, it could have been a day in our life. So why would we allow that one day to affect our whole life?
Or maybe you learn. I mean, it can happen. Somebody did that to you. Okay, you learn, but you don't allow this to happen again.
Exactly, because it's a lesson. And actually, unless we learn that lesson, it's going to keep happening. And, you know, we see that in people that always make the same mistakes over and over again, and they consider themselves victims because, you know, oh, I'm so unlucky because I keep attracting this and I keep attracting that. Well, why are you attracting this? You know, again, it's that question, why? What is making you so you know, attractive to that kind of
behavior
thing?
or
Yeah. And we have to ask ourselves, because it's always us, and we have an immense power to change our life around the moment we actually discover what lies in the unconscious.
Because all this lies into the unconscious.
Exactly.
Like this kind of for instance, feeling of being a victim, that is because you're not aware. You need to really check and bring it to the light, or that light, whatever it is, bring it to the light and realize, and then you can really work on it, because you saw it, you can see it, you will not like it, because normally we don't like it, that's why we don't want to see it. And when we see it, okay, what can I do?
Yeah.
And then you can work.
And actually, I think a lot of the time, well, actually, I think most of the time, most people, when they act evil, is because they are hurting themselves. So it's almost like they don't realize how much they're hurting others around them. And this is why we have to show compassion for those that, you know, are in this darkness about themselves, and realize that, you know, they're not necessarily evil people. It's just that, you know, they're probably in a lot of pain and they just can't see. They don't know better, you know. So we have to forgive them for not knowing.
Yes, we have to forgive them, but sometimes we need to, depends of the situation. I think it depends on the situation, but on certain things, because when we see the reality as it is, then it doesn't mean that we can allow them to carry on doing certain things, but depend on the situation, of course. Sometimes we cannot stop them. Sometimes we cannot stop them, but sometimes depend on the context. We can say, okay, that's the way you are, that's your path, you cannot see this, you're a lot in pain, but because of that doesn't mean you have to hurt me. So it needs to stop here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference between like forgiveness and allowing other people to walk over you. I think forgiveness is something that happens within you rather than, you know, in the context of the relationship. So I think it's just understanding why a person might be causing, exactly, just accepting reality, so that you don't end up being emotional as a result. And I think, you know, the kind of acceptance of reality and events and of people as they are actually leads us to the control of our emotional body. So,
and because I think forgiveness, real forgiveness, because, you know, like I was raised in a Christian family, and there is often this thing about forgive the other person, like show the other, I don't know how you say in English, like
show the other cheek.
Yeah. By time I realized that it's like there are some steps missing before you get to that point. That's that's often I don't know if they're omitted, I don't know, but is first you need to accept how it is, the situation, that accept that the other person is in that pain and is doing all this. Don't have expectations, because when you accept, you don't have expectations, so you're not there thinking, oh, but maybe if I talk to this person, he will understand and it will change the approach, and I don't know, will love me again, or I don't know, whatever. So don't have, accept, therefore don't have expectations, and then you can forgive. Because I don't think you can forgive and just say, no, but I'm forgiving, I forgive you, and then as soon as something happen again, because you have a bit of expectation, then you get angry or upset, or
which means you haven't actually forgiven at all. No, I think that's really, really important, that acceptance and not having the expectation, because really, like you say, it's impossible to forgive if you're still expecting someone else to be a different way. And it's not about just letting people you know, cause havoc in our lives. It's about realizing, well, if I cannot have this in my life, I can forgive them, but that doesn't mean I have to, you know, keep them in my life or allow this situation to keep going. I think it's, you know, sometimes when we remove certain situations or people from our life, we can do that, but we haven't actually forgiven them. So it's almost like they're still in our life, even though they're not physically there. So it's like a full package, you know. We need to have acceptance, no expectations, and forgiveness all at the same time. And that will be able to help us determine whether that thing or person should stay in our life or not. And
or how, like you can create the conditions in order to be possible. And maybe, who knows, by behaving in this way, the other person can start to understand, because learning happens only from within, not because you tell somebody, but because the person is ready and we understand. And
actually, what I found personally is that when we have less expectations on people, it's like we give them room to kind of become the better versions of themselves, because we're not trying to force something on them. It's like, you know, this manipulative side of the emotions, again, that we were talking about earlier. When we use that, it's, you know, the kind of, you know, it's very toxic. And
it's like with a mom. It makes me think of a mom with the and because of course her intentions are good and wants the best for the child and tries to help the child to do certain things for his or her best. But in reality, you're not really helping. You're kind of manipulating or having expectations or anything. The child needs to learn himself because you teach, but because he learns, and he learns because often observes you how you do it on yourself. So if you do on yourself, the child will copy you. Because children don't do what you tell them to do. They do what they see you doing. That's the thing.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, the thing about intentions is that pretty much everyone has good intentions, because deep down everyone wants to be happy in one way or another. It's just that not everybody understands the right way to go about their own happiness, which is by controlling themselves. So, you know, everyone has good intentions, and actually the most evil in the world is done by people with good intentions. That's why we have to, you know, put ourselves in check and realize that, you know, if we're acting manipulative because, you know, we want happiness for either ourselves or maybe it might be for another person, we might not actually be doing the right thing, because our perception of what is right can be colored by our emotions. And again, that's exactly,
doesn't work. And I was thinking, you know, before, maybe we can say this and then conclude. When you were talking about a powerful force, and I was thinking how we often see sensitivity as almost a weakness. But I do think sensitivity is very powerful, and of course, if we know how to manage it, but we need to be aware when we are sensitive and manage it properly. But is a powerful way for us to be receptive, as you were saying. And when we are receptive, means that we can listen to our soul and the voice of guidance and all this stuff we mentioned before. Okay, so we like to conclude our podcast with the meaning of visions and vast visions association, and then taking down the blindfolds of things that are happening or anything around us. And in this case, to do like a kind of summary of what we discussed, maybe we can start with the negative sides and end with the positive.
Okay.
So the things we discussed, the negative sides of emotions is, as we were mentioning, that first of all, emotions cannot be confused with intuition, because they're not the same thing. completely not the same thing. It's good to be led by intuition. It's not good to be led by emotion. And emotion, again, is more on the unconscious level rather than feelings are more on a conscious level. But yeah, I think we need to be aware and try to bring to light the our emotions and understand that, and see if we're led by them or we're in control
Yeah,
of these emotions, and avoid to get into these rabbit holes.
totally. And I think the positive side is that when we actually do learn how to control them, we can really tune into, you know, the true guidance of our intuition and the voice of our soul, which is the connection to God. And thus we can really lead a fulfilling life and, you know, be receptive to God.
Mm-hmm. And fulfill our purpose.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
I think it was an
Well,
interesting podcast. I don't know.
that's that. Well, thank you for listening, and we will be with you in the next episode.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.